So yeah, thank you. As Alex mentioned, I'm Jose Lopez. I work as a senior engineer at Woebot Health. And I like to talk to you about bots and mental health. So as you may know, there's a huge mental health access problem. Globally, there are far more patients than professionals that can support them. And the COVID pandemic just made the situation even worse. So in order to help with this problem, I'd like to introduce you to Woebot. Woebot is a relational agent. It's a chatbot that is able to establish a therapeutic relationship with you. And while Woebot is not at all meant to replace therapists, it uses cognitive behavioral therapy to teach you how to deal with the most usual health problems. It's an app, it's accessible 24/7 on your phone. There's no human connected to the conversation, so anytime it's good to talk without appointment or wait, and could be used as a complementary treatment for the therapy sessions or just in between sessions. I'd like to introduce a little bit more how it works, including a quick demo. And then we will discuss some of the clinical results that we are starting to gather so far. So normally as Woebot works is inviting people to start a conversation with a greeting, maybe a joke to break the ice, empathetically giving some positive reinforcement, and depending on the answer of the user, maybe if it's feeling bad, tries to help. For example, if the user mentions he's tired, it might offer some sleep routine. If the user mentions he's stressed or anxious, might offer some stress relief. I'm going to show you a quick demo of a user. Woebot starts, as I mentioned, with check-in. It starts asking, how are you doing? And depending on the mood, could go into a more lesson related, where Woebot teaches some part of mental health to the user. But in this case, the user was feeling low. And Woebot is going to offer to go to a tool that we call the thought challenger. So the thought challenger is a tool based on cognitive behavioral therapy. And the goal is to identify cognitive distortions on your negative thoughts. The way Woebot works with it is asking the user to input a few thoughts that are bothering him at the moment, select one and work on it in a way that Woebot tries to mention a few of the more common distortions to the user that can ask for examples, for further explanations, to identify if that thought contains that distortion. So, for example, when it finishes, Woebot will ask the user to rewrite that thought without those distortions that you can see now in the screen. Rewriting the thought is going to help the user to deal with this in a much better way and without worrying or concerning about it so much, because it will be more realistic, not being affected by the cognitive distortions. Once just as a final step, once the tool is done, Woebot shows some appreciation for the hard work of the user, let him know where to find that tool in the future, because actually the next time the user gets back to that tool, Woebot is going to bring more advanced content, different material, more and distortions, because the point is that the user eventually learns all these distortions. They quickly identify these distortions on his thoughts and make better to deal with these negative thoughts. It's actually thanks to talk like this one, and as Atenu just mentioned, when you actively engage with empathy, it increases the amount of things the user learns. This is exactly one of the other applications of, if you are more empathetic and more active with the user, the outcome is much better. One demonstration is that Woebot actually quickly bonds with the user. So in one recent paper we published, in the graph you can see the working alliance, which is the bonding score between the patient and the therapist. You can see in yellow, Woebot quickly established a very a bond with the user at the same level than human therapists, and that actually lasts for the whole duration of the program, the 8 weeks. And this is a key evolve in the digital therapeutics world. Another important feature of Woebot is that it is also a journal. So because Woebot checks with you every day, he can track your goals, tracks your mood over time, and how are you feeling. And it's also a gratitude journal. When you are feeling happy, Woebot is going to ask you why are you feeling happy, and write a few happy thoughts on the journal. So when you are a different day feeling low, he will come back to those happy thoughts and cheer you up. Over time, this continuous use of Woebot is actually enabling it to monitor your mental health and run assessment on your current mood. And we all have ups and downs in our life, and Woebot adapts to that. So when Woebot detects a drop on your mood, it's going to enroll you and triage into a specific program, more specialized treatment like depression or anxiety. And it's going to change the lessons and the tools it offers to you to that. And eventually later, when notices the mood went back to normal, it will put you back on the regular maintenance mode. What are those treatments that Woebot has? So we are developing at the moment these treatments on our pipeline. In addition to the general wellness product, we are currently developing the postpartum depression, adolescent depression, and substance abuse in different stages. In order to develop and especially to validate the efficacy of these programs, we need to run randomized clinical trials. For many of us coming from the tech world, randomized clinical trial look a bit closer to an A/B test or a split test experiments. So the idea is that you split your population into 2 branches, one control branch that doesn't change, and one treatment branch that has your new changes, treatments or code, and then compare the results on both of them to see if that worked and how. This is ultimately what we do for many features. And in the graph, for example, there's how many number of modules we can increase by adding this little feature to how we snooze lessons, we snooze notifications, for example. So we can validate there's a positive change. Now, that's probably also behind the concept behind clinical trials, but it's much more harder. So for a clinical trial, you need to normally run it with academic or clinical partner, because they have to diagnose and recruit those patients, randomized into the two branches. And the control branch needs to run a placebo app, so the equivalent of the sugar pill in the pharma world. It can be so good that the patients have any treatment in that branch, but enough good so the patients are actually blinded and they don't realize they are in a control branch. Another requirement is that we have to isolate the environments where these studies are run. We push code and content changes every day into Woebot, and these studies keep it isolated with the same version working for the whole duration. We have to do all of that in compliance with, of course, with HIPAA, the Health Information Protection Act, and that means all the data is de-identified from personal data. Everything is, of course, protected and confidential. Only staff that really needs that data has access to that data. That data is corrected for several biases that could occur. All of that with the maximum rigor there is, because we are trying to get regulated and certified by the FDA, getting the FDA approval on all of that. There's some benefit on running because we get some interesting data and results. For example, our regular depression program, we detected a 22% reduction on symptoms. For the postpartum depression program, we detected a 30% reduction. And for the adolescent, we detected 65% symptom reduction from it. So I invite you to read each of these is published as a paper. I invite you to read it. They are published at our website, woebothealth.com. Before I finish, just as a summary, Woebot quickly establishes a bond with the user, is able to adapt the treatment and to changes in your personal situation, and running these clinical trials and seeking FDA regulation gave us these results that show Woebot being effective, treating anxiety and depression. So just one last comment before finishing. We just closed our Series B, and we are recruiting across clinical, product, business, and engineering teams. So I invite you to visit our careers website and check the roles if you are interested in getting. It's a company with a great mission. And I hope you enjoyed this presentation. Thank you very much. I will encourage you to download Woebot in both the App Store and Google Play and give it a try. Yeah, thank you very much.
Great, thank you. So I was curious, given this is kind of a new modality for people, did you get any sort of pushback from kind of your peers that are used to more of a full in-person experience, or people in the medical or approval profession? Like, what was kind of the reaction to it?
No. There hasn't been a huge pushback at all. I mean, Woebot is useful as a complementary treatment as well, and we all know there aren't enough mental health professionals to cover all the demand. So there must be some other way, and this use case is perfect for mild symptoms, for example, that sometimes they don't require a therapy. therapist, but Woebot can take care of that. I remember our founder sometimes mentioned this is we are not sandwich store are not replacing Michelin restaurants. It's not the same competence. So yeah.
Excellent. What would you say was kind of an expectation you had before launching or making an adjustment that ended up being untrue? I always find it interesting, like when you get a surprising result. I think that's a good place to learn things.
Yeah, no, definitely. Like when you get into the use of releasing everything as an A/B experiment, things that look enhancement to the app sometimes are not. I mean, we based on customer research, we changed our buttons and how the buttons were displayed, and we actually had less engagement. And for a while, we weren't able to explain why. So yeah, that's I think where's the value on these experiments, that sometimes you get a negative reaction that you never would have thought, and gives you a lot more information about your users.
Great. Yeah, I really like the data-driven approach. We have a question. So is Woebot available only in the English language? Specifically with like cultural barriers, this could be delicate or tough to talk about if someone's not a native speaker.
Definitely, yeah, it is a barrier, and unfortunately, it is still just in English. I mean, one thing to take into account is all the content from Woebot is curated. Is content writers and therapists writing all that content, all those modules and tools. So it's a huge load to translate, but it's in the roadmap, and hopefully we can see Woebot in other languages soon.
Okay, great. Any other questions? We'll take a last call. Otherwise, that was really great to see all the data and just seeing the numbers, how you're able to take a new modality like a chat app, but still apply like statistical measures, and people are used to websites and like, okay, I'm going to move this button over here or change the wording. And you can do the same things with a conversational experience and definitely get some benefit out of that. All right, so I wanted to, one more question. Are there any concerns about hacking to get patient conversations? Like what sort of protections are in place?
Yeah, it's of course it's always a concern, especially when there's mental health data involved. We run the security audits at the highest level and follow all best practices we can around that. But yeah, definitely we haven't been breached, but it's always a concern to keep all the infrastructure and all the security practices to the best.
Okay. All right. Thank you very much. So really appreciate the group. We had quite an event today with lots of different speakers and aspects. And hope you'll join us for future events, and hope you'll join us as we talk about the metaverse too. Thanks, everyone. Bye.